Welcome to the Circle Sessions, featuring the Circle of Experts. The Circle of Experts are Yasmin Robles from Robles Designs, Tanisha English Amamu of TJE Communications, and Don the Idea Guy. I'm Brett Johnson from Circle 270 Media Podcast Consultants. Well, each week, one of the Circle of Experts joins me to talk about critical aspects of growing your podcast. We focus on marketing, social media, monetization, and website design to help you implement all of these together. Well, this week I got me, Brett Johnson, my podcast guy, known to my podcast clients as my podcast guy. This week, let's talk about the 5 most annoying podcaster habits, how to keep your audience engaged by avoiding them. Let's talk about something that's going to make or break your show, keeping your listeners hooked. Do you know that feeling when you start a podcast episode and bail after a few minutes? That's why we've got to make our shows the ones people just can't stop listening to. Here's the deal. Making your audience happy isn't just a nice little bonus. It's absolutely crucial. It's all about creating that awesome experience that keeps them coming back for more. Trust me, when you nail it, it's like magic for your podcast. Whether you're a podcast pro looking to spice things up or a newbie trying to make a splash, we're going to explore how to create a podcast experience that'll have your listeners hooked. Ready to make your show the one everyone's talking about? Let's do it. Habit number 1, lack of preparation and organization. Well, picture this. You're listening to a podcast and the host is all over the place, repeating themselves and basically sounding like they just rolled out of bed. Not exactly what you want for your show, right? Now, I get it. Life gets busy, and sometimes it's tempting just to hit record and see what happens. But here's the thing. Your listeners can tell when you're flying by the seat of your pants. It's like trying to fake your way through a conversation about a book you haven't read. It just doesn't work. Preparation is like having a GPS for your podcast. It keeps you on track and helps you avoid those awkward and moments. When you do your homework, you can ask those killer questions that make your guests go, wow, that's a great point. Or my favorite, no one has ever asked me that before. But it's not just about impressing your guests. Prepping for your show shows your listeners that you value their time. It's like saying, hey, I care enough about you to make sure this episode is worth your while. In a world where there's a podcast for everything, including one about watching drying paint probably, you want to stand out. Preparation is also key for podcasts that have multiple co-hosts. If one or more come unprepared, it makes it extremely difficult for the prepared co-hosts to keep the episode on track. That's where you need maybe a showrunner role to be implemented. What does a showrunner do in podcasting? Well, that's the person who gets their fingers in every piece of your podcast production. They're the mastermind behind the scenes, calling the shots on everything from the initial brainstorming sessions to the final publish button. They're knee-deep in the nitty-gritty. We're talking concept development, script polishing, recording sessions, editing, even marketing your show. They're the ones making sure your podcast doesn't go off the rails, keeping each episode on brand and on point. They're the ones making the tough calls that can make or break your show. So here's the deal. Take some time to plan your episodes. Do your research, jot down some talking points, and maybe even practice a bit. Your listeners are going to thank you for it. Habit number 2, overuse of filler words and verbal tics. These little speech hiccups can seriously mess up with your podcast's flow. They might seem harmless, but trust me, they can turn your listeners off faster than you can say but don't sweat it. There are some easy ways to level up your speech game. Well, first off, try being more mindful when you're behind the mic. Catch yourself before those filler words slip out. Instead of umming, take a beat. Silence can be golden. Do you know why we use when we speak? Fillers such as and are precisely that. They're fillers. They're audibles placeholders we use between gathering our thoughts and vocalizing them. We subconsciously think that when we stop talking, we'll lose our turn to speak, which is not usually the case. So what can you do instead? First, analyze and review your past episodes. I know, it can be cringeworthy, but it's a game changer. You'll start to notice your verbal quirks. Maybe you're clearing your throat every 2 minutes or ending every sentence with right. Once you spot those patterns, you can start working on them. Figure out when you do use filler words. Why do you use filler words? Sometimes filler words can be replaced by alternative words that add more meaning, emphasis, or connection to what you're trying to say. For example, instead of saying you could say well, so, or have, now, or actually. Instead of saying like, you can say, for example, such as, similar to, or in other words. Just pause and collect your thoughts. We offer a podcast audit that helps podcasters review their episodes from an outsider's perspective. We don't sugarcoat the areas you need to work on, but we also point out what our clients are doing great as well. If you're interested in some help, you can go to my scheduling calendar and let's talk. You can go to mypodcastguy.com. Cleaning up your speech isn't just about sounding polished, though that's a great bonus. It's about making sure your content shines through without any distractions. Your listeners are going to appreciate the clarity. Habit number 3, excessive self-promotion. So let's focus on that tricky balance between self-promotion and killer content. Your listeners aren't tuning in for a nonstop promo fest. If you're always in sell mode, you might as well cue the unsubscribe sound effect, whatever the opposite sound of smash that subscribe button would be. So how do you do this? It's all about serving up episodes so good they're share-worthy. So try weaving in mentions of your stuff that makes sense with your episode topic. Or share some behind-the-scenes stories that showcase your expertise without screaming, I'm the next best thing. It's like adding just the right amount of compression to your audio. A little goes a long way. When you're dropping episodes that educate, entertain, or light a fire under your listeners' butts, you're crushing it. That's how you build that trust factor and keep them hitting the play button. And guess what? That naturally leads to more buzz about your brand and your listeners talking about and sharing your episodes with friends and colleagues. The number one way to grow your podcast is from word of mouth. And remember, the shows that really pop are all about giving your listeners the good stuff. Find that sweet spot between a sprinkle of self-promotion and content that's shareable, and you'll have fans hanging on your every word. Habit number 4, ignoring listener feedback and engagement. This is important, but often overlooked, that listener feedback and engagement. Trust me, this stuff is gold for your show. We all know that running a podcast can be a grind. You're constantly churning out episodes, trying to stay on top of your game. But here's the thing, if you're not tapping into your listeners' thoughts and opinions, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Your listeners are the lifeblood of your show. They're the ones tuning in week after week, and they've got some pretty valuable insights to share. By paying attention to their feedback, you can get a real pulse on what's working and what's not. But it's not just about improving your content. Engaging with your listeners is how you build a real community around your show. When you take the time to respond to comments or answer questions, you're showing your audience that they matter. And let me tell you, that kind of connection is priceless. Sometimes it's tempting just to put your head down and focus on cranking out episodes. But ignoring your listeners is a surefire way to stunt your growth. You might be missing out on some unique ideas or alienating the very people who support your show. Most podcasters struggle to get listeners to chime in. So when you do get that precious feedback, it's like having a focus group at your fingertips. Your listeners are taking time out of their business, their busy lives to share their thoughts. That's huge. It's not just a pat on the back, though that's a nice thing too. It's a gold mine of insights that can help you level up your show. So use that feedback as your secret weapon. It could be tweaking your content, adjusting your format, or even sparking ideas for new episodes. Remember, your listeners are your target audience in the flesh. Their input is pure podcasting fuel. Remember, podcasting isn't a one-way street. It's a conversation. Don't let that feedback gather dust. Dive in, analyze it, and let it shape your podcast. It's one of the best tools we've got for growth and engagement. Make listener interaction a priority. It's not just a nice to have. It's essential for creating a podcast that really resonates with your audience. Habit number 5, inconsistent release schedule or lengthy episodes. These are the pain points that can really throw a wrench in your show's growth. Inconsistent release schedules and marathon length episodes. Life gets crazy, and suddenly your well-planned podcast schedule goes out the window. But here's the thing. Your listeners are counting on you. They're itching for that next episode drop, and a wonky release schedule can leave them hanging. Consistency is key. Whether you're dropping episodes weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, stick to it. I look at it as a tacit agreement with your audience. They've agreed to follow your podcast for the content you promised to create. With their click to follow agreement, you must keep up your end of the agreement. Deliver content as promised, or make a new agreement with your listeners. Now, let's talk about those epic length episodes. Sure, sometimes you've got a topic that needs a deep dive, but remember your listeners have lives too. They're squeezing in your show during commutes, workouts, or while doing the dishes. Keep things tight and focused. It's not about cutting valuable content. It's about respecting your audience's time and keeping them hooked from start to finish. Here's where we go back to bad habit number 1. Preparation will help you reduce those epic length episodes. It helps to reduce them down to episode lengths so that you start to see a higher percentage of your listeners listening longer through the episode. A consistent schedule and focused episodes show your listeners you're a pro who values their time and keeps them coming back for more. So let's wrap it up. Building a loyal listener base isn't rocket science, but it does require some finesse and some work. By steering clear of those pesky habits that drive listeners away, you're setting yourself up for success. Remember, it's all about creating engaging content that keeps your audience coming back for more and content that they want to share. Stick to a consistent schedule, and you'll be amazed at how your listenership grows. Trust me, your podcast and your listener base will thank you for it.